Hey, what's up, guys? This is Stephen Melin, music composer for video games and founder of Video Game Music Alliance. And today, got a really good question from one of our members inside Video Game Music Alliance. This is from Caleb, and he asks, what's everyone's tricks for programming fast legato, particularly in strings? So far, I've found that layering a quick attack with the legato patch works best, but it still doesn't sound as good as I would like. So this is a topic that I love talking about because this is something that I struggled with for a very long time, trying to make my sample libraries sound realistic. Because the truth of the matter is, even though it is so much fun to record with a live orchestra, and I've had the incredible honor of doing that multiple times in various soundtracks, it's just not the norm. It's expensive. You have to have a large budget to do that, even on a shoestring budget. Maybe you can get a track or two, but it's just not the norm. So it's very important that as composers, we are able to make our music sound as realistic as possible, as emotional and human as possible. And so this is the way that I do it. So just to kind of showcase what Caleb was talking about, this is what I used to do for the longest time, is I would take a violin patch, such as this one from Adagietto, which, does not sound great, I'll be honest. And yeah, you can use the speed knob to help it feel a little bit quicker. The legato volume knob to help kind of the whooshiness, the connective tissue between the notes. But it still just kind of sounds meh, not very lifelike. So what Caleb was referring to is taking a short string patch, just like a staccato or a spiccato patch. So here's from the same library, Adagietto. Turn it up a little bit. And then essentially you would play both at the same time. It kind of functionally gets the job done, but man, it just sounds terrible. And you know, if you have 20 other instruments playing, you have like a full orchestra, okay, fine. It can probably be masked enough or doubled enough to kind of hide, but we don't want to hide. We want our music to sound great. And when we strip away our stems and our layers, you want it to sound like quality music. So that is not a good way of doing it. It's a very amateur way of doing it. So let's kill those. So instead, I'm going to highly recommend that you use a sample library. There's lots out there, but use one that is dedicated for legato. My favorite of all time is Tokyo Scoring Strings. I think it excels at this because it was created for this purpose, to play these beautiful, emotional legato lines. The first thing that I notice is the legato is very sluggish, which is something we'll have to address in just a little bit once we actually record the MIDI data. But man, it's so much more emotional and emotive, and the notes actually connect really well. And I can actually play pretty fast. And we do have a knob here for legato speed, which a lot of libraries have. So make sure if you're going to play a fast line, you put this on very fast. Which is essentially inside contact. It's taking the two samples that are side by side, and when you play like C to D, there's that little crossfade in the middle that connects the two. It's that bow stroke, that legato is a slur that connects the two. And so the two samples that are connected like that, the legato speed is essentially just deciding how long or how short that crossfade is. So if we're on the slowest setting, you see how long it took? I mean, you can watch my fingers. It's a very long time between I play the notes and it actually does the slur. So the very fast then would make the crossfade very short, therefore making it sound like the slur is faster. So I have found that putting it on fast is usually a sweet spot. And it's also important to notice that I have this on the standard setting, which is of the three of zero latency, standard, and look ahead. I like standard because it gives the most realistic human performance. You could use zero latency, but what that does is it actually removes the legato sampling, which that defeats the whole purpose, in my opinion. I've actually saved my own patches by purging all samples. I reduced the file size to be really small. And then inside all the patches here, I've disabled every single patch that's not the legato bow and slur. That way it just kind of keeps the file size really small when I'm loading this. And I did that for Violin 1 and Violin 2, which is the exact same thing, just, different recording, the Violin 2 patch. And so now that I have those, we're good to go. Also, you might notice with solo instruments, such as solo violin or solo cello, it's the same thing. You gotta find a library that was designed for legatos. So my favorite solo violin is the Joshua Bell violin because you can just shred on it and it works. Right? It's built for that. Same thing with cello, the Tina Guo cello, very similar in its programming style. And as with any of these legato patches, you'd want to move the speed of that legato, the crossfading of the samples, to match the passage that you're playing. So if you're playing really fast, you want to have that knob up. Kind of like that. Okay, so that is how you can actually get the sound that sounds correct. But you should also be aware that there are runs libraries out there as well. And there's two in particular for violins and for woodwinds as well that I find absolutely phenomenal whenever you're trying to play just a really fast line. So for example, if I'm trying to play like a really long C major scale, it's not bad, right? It's serviceable, but you're always going to have those little programming nasties in between. So instead, you're better off using a violin runs library that was recorded with the entire ensemble playing the actual scales that you're looking for. So there's two libraries I'd recommend. First one is called Modal Runs. Very few people know about this one. This is from Sonokinetic. This thing is absolutely crazy. The first thing you should know is there's a slider here that you can click and drag. If it's green all the way on the left, it means it's all strings. Like that. If you slide it all the way to the right, it's all woodwinds. And then if you put it somewhere in the middle, it'll be both. Phenomenal. And what's cool about it is they painstakingly recorded basically every note to every note, upwards and downwards. And so the way this works is you see the blue notes right here. You play the chord in the left hand. So I want to play a C minor chord. Let me actually, there we go, go down to it. That's a C minor chord. And then in the right hand, I'm going to play the range of notes that I want to be sounded. Let's go ahead and put it just on strings because we're talking about strings today. So let's say I want to play a C to a C. Whoa, that's cool. And let's say I want to go C to B flat. And it goes in the direction of what notes you play first. So if I play low C to high B flat, it's going to go low to high. If I play B flat to C, it's going to go low. So you can really get wild with this stuff. And then the left hand can change chords at any point. So let's just do a little passage. It's kind of insane, really. You can just go all day with that kind of stuff. And then you can change the length that the notes are played. Highly recommend you check this out because you can come up with some phenomenal runs that sound crazy realistic. Another one is the runs add-on for Palette. This is a library by Red Room Audio, which I believe is now owned by Impact Soundworks. So you should probably go to their website to find it. And you have a list of your different modes here. And then what you do is you play with the key switches like this. This would be a 2-octave up and down. Gosh, I've used this library so much. So there's an F major because I pushed an F. Here's a G. So if you're into writing like traditional, like John Williams or Wagnerian type music, this is your holy grail right here. Because you can just, that's the kind of stuff they write, right? Just go all day with this kind of stuff. And then you can actually choose with the key switches over here, you can choose just the type of scale that you want. So let's say you want the whole tone scale because you're writing something very magical. Then you go over here, just select the whole tone with the key switch, which would be G sharp 2 in this case, and then play. Pick your... Pretty cool. So they have a woodwinds patch alongside the strings. So I've used that so many times in my scoring, and I absolutely love it. So let's actually do a quick little example here, and I'll show you what I was referring to earlier, which is how do you actually kind of make sure that the samples are not playing late after you've created the MIDI. So, for example, let's just turn the click on. It's at 120 BPM. Here we go. I'm just going to play something. Okay, there's a little line. I'm going to take that, copy and paste it, put it into the second violin's 1 octave lower. Okay, so the first thing I would do with any MIDI is try to align that first note directly on the bar line. And then from there, I would do a little bit of quantizing. And actually, to save time, I'm going to just work on the first violin line here. It sounds like all of that. Those are all 16th notes. So select them. And you've got to be really fierce with your quantizing on this library. So it sounds like everything is already really late. I'm going to drag it over, quantize. It goes ba-ba-bum, ba-da-bum-bum-bum. Ba-da-bum, 1, 2, 3, da-da-da, dun dun, da-dun, dun, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-bum. And just for the sake of time, so I'm not boring you to death, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-bum, bum-bum-bum-bum-bum, bum-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum. We'll just make those triplets. I guess that'd be 8th note triplets. Okay, so you're already noticing some weird things happening. This is just sample library land where with MIDI, you got to make sure that your notes are not touching each other. If it's the same note. Okay, and so this is where we start to hear some of the errors that happen with MIDI because we're dealing with legato patches. So first thing I want to make sure of is that I'm quantized as much as I can be. And then what I like to do is make sure that all of my notes extend to the next note. So in this case, you'll notice how this note is not perfectly quantized to there. It extends, called the aftertouch. It's where the note is longer. So that way, when the next note comes in, it triggers the legato sample. that. You see how weird that sounds? Yada-ba-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum. So I'm going to make these all like that. And what I can do is go ahead and make them all perfectly kind of square. It's a pain for sure, but this is how we get what the sound that we want without recording live musicians. So I'm going to make them all perfectly 16th notes and then take the ends of all of them, the lengths, and extend them out. Except for the last one. I'm going to make the last one perfectly quantized. Okay, so there it is. It's all there. So then to make sure that it sounds the way that I want to, let's copy and paste it into the second violin. Put them down an octave, right? I'm going to bounce this to audio. Because what I've learned over the many years of doing this is that with working with MIDI, especially Legato MIDI, you want to make sure that everything is aligned, and the only way to really do that is with audio. So if I solo just this part that we bounced, it's already off. And the way I can tell is because I'm listening to the click in my ear. And maybe a good way to make sure everybody can hear that is I'm just going to grab, let's do strings short, and just so we have something to kind of have an accompaniment to play with, I'm just going to grab something from Helix. There we go. And this is going to be like a chord. On the beats. Yeah, I like that a lot. So let's run with that. Solo it like this. Just like that. Cool. So take all of that. Those are all 16th notes except for the last dun 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 dun. So these guys are 8th note triplets. Da, 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 dum. Just to have a little background to play this with. Cool. So now we want to make sure that the violins are matched with it. A couple things up front. I'm going to make those a little bit louder, make them 5 dB louder because they're audio. I can do that. And basically, I'm going to go phrase by phrase to make sure that it's all aligned. See how it's all already super late? So I'm going to take this audio, drag it until it feels correct. And so you notice how it starts, how to make it start early for it to sound correct. So what I'm going to do is put it back on the beat with my quantizing, and I'm going to simply chop off that beginning part and do a tiny little fade in. I think I overcorrected, but you see my process. It's kind of a trial and error. So here's an example where it actually started early. Because we can see the audio, we can just move it like that. And then I'm going to do some crossfading here. Okay, I can live with that. And then I'm also going to take that patch, that audio file, And I'm going to make sure that it gets some reverb because without it, it just sounds a little dull. Let's throw it into some Aether. Okay, now I would do the same thing with the second violin. And I can probably just move it around the same spot. Let's turn it down. Okay. All right, there we go. So it's decent. It's a whole lot better than it was. Okay, and then from there, maybe I want to do some runs. What are we in? We're in the key of A minor. So I'm going to go down here, and maybe we go a little bit higher. Maybe we can try. Like that. It's pretty cool. So instead of the triplet idea, what if we did that? What if we did a nice little run? But we did some octaves. Like that. Okay. Because it's all late and stuff, I'm going to convert that to audio so we can actually see it. Put it exactly where we want it. Also throw that into some reverb. Totally flying here. I'm going to do the same treatment for the second violins, which did not get that reverb yet. So you can see that all that right there. But you can already see how there's lots of options here. And because that would just be the first violin, the violin 1 runs, what we could do is make another one for the second violin runs. So we'll call that V1 runs, call this V2 runs, and just make it an octave lower. Let's see if it actually works. Down here. Yes, it does. So then we can just take that, try to align it with the other one. So with any runs, basically just want to look at the audio and make sure that it is lined up together, and then you can play around with it until it's exactly what you want. Like that. That should work. Let's do a little fade ins. Yeah, that's the idea. Let's make them longer. There we go. Is this the best thing I've ever written? Not a chance, but you kind of get the idea. You could obviously run with this when it comes to creating runs and creating fast legato notes, but all in all, concept here is, number one, to use a sample library that is designed for legato writing. And then number two, use the legato speed to determine whether it's a fast passage or a slow passage to help you get the crossfading of the samples to be exactly where you want it to sound as realistic as possible. Number three is to quantize the MIDI to make sure that each of the notes starts when it's supposed to, and you can clean it up that way, and to make sure that each of your MIDI notes are extended a little bit longer so that it triggers the legato passage. And then number four, bounce that MIDI to audio so that you can align it exactly where it needs to be within the grid, and it's going to sound amazing. And then from there, you just mix it and make it sound the way that you want to, and add your other instruments and layer as you need to. So this is my process for writing legato music, and this works with all instruments, not just strings. But that was the question from Caleb, so hopefully that answers the question and helps somebody out in the process. So thanks so much for watching. Can't wait to see you guys next time.